on whether and how to make the material public, one party's being left out: the murdered students' families. And that brings me once again to Steve Goncalves, who lost his daughter Kaylee to the horrors on King Road. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time. So while it doesn't look like the crime scene photos are in this current batch of documents, do you plan to fight their release if and when that time comes?
Yeah, I believe all the families have let that be known to the prosecuting team that that's not anything that we were interested in. And we've been worried that we would see those leaked at any time when you had like certain stories and certain things been leaked since the very beginning. We were afraid that we'd wake up one morning and that may be on, might be on TV.
Yeah, Steve, I know there are people out there who want full transparency. They want to get every single aspect of this case. I do not see the value of that. I think that this is painful, it's gratuitous, it's disgusting. But for the people out there who want full transparency about this and say, I don't even know what the argument would be to see that. What would your response to them be?
You don't get that. Those are our children, and we're not settling for that type of thing. And I think it encourages. I mean, you got a whole show here with some people that are doing some terrible things to people, and that's one thing that I think we show a little bit too much of. And I hope that we can give these kids some dignity, and we don't have to go there.
Is there anything else in the current batch of documents that you plan to fight the release of?
No, they asked us about the toxicology report after we got that. We said we didn't care. The autopsies, some mothers wanted to keep that, and I understand that. That has it has like a injury by injury write-ups, so it's pretty gruesome. So those are the ones that we were. I think that'll be the last one that we really will try to keep close to the chest.
And it's good to know that, as you said, that the families seem to be on the same page with this. I mean, there is this argument, right, out there, putting aside crime scene photos. The public wants to know as much as possible about why these children were killed. And the question becomes, do you think the public has a right to know all the details of the case? Again, putting aside the crime scene photos, do you think the public has a right to know all of this?
I think the public should demand that 100%. Sometimes the courtroom doesn't realize that there is no courtroom without victims, and they need to represent them people and the community. The community has the right to know that they're arresting the right people, and the punishment is correct. And I think that the prosecution here purposely hid the facts of what happened to these kids to try to get all the parents to be in silos and not unite and force them to do the right thing, force them to have, a capital case. They never had that. That's why they didn't tell the kids what really happened to our kids. They hid that from us because they knew that could be a riling cry for all the parents to get on the same page.
And I want to talk about that in a minute, and as well as Bill Thompson and current statements he's making. But, Steve, when I look at you, I interview victims' family members all the time. And you think about what they have to go through when the crime first happens, what they have to go through when there is a trial, what they have to go through the grieving process for the rest of their lives. But you're in this unique, unfortunately unique position where this case has been amplified. And I wonder for you, how difficult is it knowing that you are going to have to deal with these document releases for months, that the story doesn't end with Kohberger getting shipped away, that now it's about the release of information and trying to protect your daughter and the other victims? How difficult is it?
We have to do it better. They could have easily done better than this. This trickle effect of, the case is over. Let it out. Stand by what your decisions are, and the information come out. I know you have to give a little bit of time for sealing, but it's called control, find, replace. We do it at work all the time. It's not a big deal. We can get through these docs real easy. So yeah. I think they got to do a better job. And this trickle thing's been going on the whole time. And it was torture. It was absolute torture for the families. And they kind of wore us all down. And that's kind of the strategy that, we knew that the defense was going to do, was to try to push this out, try to make it as far away from our homes, try to make it as inconvenient as possible. And, they had success for that. And in the end, they were rewarded.
just to clarify something, how has communication been with the prosecutor's office regarding document releases?
Once the plea was in, we haven't heard anything. So, and they basically told us when we wanted to get all the discovery that we'd have to go through the state and we'd have to go through the federal FOIA request. They weren't going to help us in any way. They did actually help us with one. They did help us with the death certificate, the autopsy. They gave us that. That was given to us on a thumb drive. But other than that, we have to go through the official channels like everyone else. And when you guys are hearing about it, you're hearing about it before we are.
That is disgusting. I'm saying that in my opinion, that is so terrible. And by the way, so we're talking about the prosecution. So Bill Thompson has been speaking out about the case. A, what do you make of that? And B, do you agree with this theory that he's put out that Bryan Kohberger broke into the house before the murders?
Yeah, we spoke with some FBI profilers, and that's where we kind of came to the conclusion that this person had been looking at this house and had probably tested that backslider and had probably been in that house multiple times and maybe even like attempted to hide in a closet. Those type of behavior patterns they explained to us. So yeah, we'd known about that, and they thought maybe possibly this individual brought a kill kit, some things to go in there, because anybody who goes into a house and goes through those scenarios is going to be very well planned. And there's a little tree line out there. He could have put some of those things like a backpack or some mitigating things like plastic, some other type of things. He could have left them out there, slid in. I mean, he even wrote about how he would prevent a crime scene from being contaminated. So you can anticipate that those same things he wrote about are things that he actually did in that crime scene. And I think he intimidated the prosecution, and they were a little bit scared to have to go to bat against him, so they took the easy way out.
And they had so much evidence against him. I mean, really, they did. But going back to the point, Mr. Thompson going out there and speaking about the case, do you object to that? How do you feel about it?
I prefer that he just be quiet. I mean, I want to hear from the officers. I want to hear about the people who actually did their job. I really don't want to hear about a guy who, called into work, talked to a coworker and said, hey, let's make a deal. Let's be done. I don't feel like working. Do you not feel like working? They came up with a plea deal and they went home and they got their summers back. So that's not who I think we should be talking to. We should be talking to the FBI and those prosecutors and the boots and the men and women that actually helped put this case together. There's some really neat people, Authoring Labs, the IGG, all those things that they put together. I think those things should be highlighted. But Thompson, he's the last one who should really be talking about what he didn't do.
Interesting you say that. I want to play you something. This is former prosecutor, friend of the show, Matt Murphy. Listen to what he had to say.
The prosecutor, I've got a lot of problems. I got a problem with his media tour right now, where he's talking about how, what was the quote? Sorry, I got notes here.
We
had
did
the
our
opportunity
job
to do it in a way. Yeah, to really give some immediate finality. We're pleased and relieved that the community and the victims' families aren't going to have to live through this. That's pretty tone deaf. The families never get over this. And, it's like that applies to every single murder case. So it's like, what is do we just give everybody a deal now so you don't put the family through the case? And by the way, having watched Olivia Goncalves, that woman, when she ripped into Kohberger, I guarantee was not afraid of the process or facing Kohberger in the penalty phase. And it's like, and this is crass, so I hate to say this, but if I'm allowed to swear, I keep thinking of Dave Chappelle's quote. We could do it that way, Mr. Prosecutor. We could just give everybody a friggin' deal. Or you could shut the f up, because you are undermining I think, the integrity of a lot of death penalty cases in the 27 states and the federal system that still have it, by essentially, you've got this example that everybody's heard of. If the death penalty does not apply to Bryan Kohberger, who does it apply to?
So, Steve, what do you think? I mean, do you think this sets a dangerous precedent? Do you think it undermines future death penalty cases by making a deal so not to take it to trial?
100% it does. And, this is a repeating pattern for this individual. The sad truth is my daughter and the victims in that house fought way harder than Thompson ever did. They fought for their lives. They gave every inch they had, and he just didn't have it. I hate to say it, he's just a weak prosecutor, and he's got away with it for so long because there wasn't, you got to get on the TV. You got to do what I'm doing right now. You really have to put pressure on these people. Unfortunately, he's old and he's going to retire now. This can be his last little hurrah. But, I would like people to put an explanation point to his name and say, he didn't do his job. He didn't do it. He didn't listen to the people. He didn't do the will. He didn't look at the circumstances of this case. I just heard about paperwork today where Bryan asked somebody, a girl, a date that he was on, and said, what could you think of the worst way if somebody could be could be killed? And she said stabbing, and he said, like in a K-bar? So here's a man researching the worst way to kill someone, and Thompson can't stand up to that person.
Steve, the trial didn't happen. He's not on death row, but it was reported that he's spending, 23 hours in a solitary confinement cell. He gets 1 hour out, talking about Bryan Kohberger, showers every other day. When you hear about what his life is going to be like, that is going to be his day in and day out for the remainder of his life, does that provide any sense of justice to you? I mean, what do you think of that? What do you make of that?
I think that's a step in the right direction. I think that's a good, in the 23 isolation. I love that, let him be stuck with his mind of what a failure he is. I believe that's the best we can do. I never really thought we'd ever see the death penalty, but I just wanted that isolation, and I didn't want him to sit there in the prison system and get educated and finish out his PhD and have influence. We don't have the Son of Sam law in Idaho, and this guy's going to take advantage of the systems. We'll try to write a law and get it in place before he gets to this book, but we got to do a better job, man. We got to learn from like Texas and some of these other states that have figured it out. Because it's an embarrassment. I love Idaho, but it's an embarrassment. People like Thompson have embarrassed us in front of the whole world, and we got some work to do. We got to fix some things here and get things back on track.
Well, Steve, my heart is going out to you and the families. This is just becoming an even more difficult situation for all of you. Thinking about you, thank you so much for coming on, and appreciate the time and bringing awareness to what is happening.
Same to you, sir.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.